Hey guys, welcome to Titan Talk. Too long didn't watch February 10th. I'm sorry that I missed uploading this on the 10th, but I was actually playing the OB3 update as it just came out, so I'm a little bit behind, but I'm also going to be releasing the one from today, so you'll be getting two in one day. So obviously last week was really shit for them, more so than anyone else, but they do know that Titan Talk is a big thing for the community, so they didn't want to take an extended break. I really recommend watching the first 5 to 10 minutes of the Titan Talks. The devs are obviously sad, but they're committed and as passionate as us in the community. But OB3 launched this morning, well, technically 2 days ago. They went through the OB3 update, which I went through in part in my last Titan Talk Too Long Didn't Watch, but also have a direct link to the patch notes in the description. Most of the other changes not mentioned in my last video are Smite 1 parity changes, and they added an unequip button allowing practice with skins, changed the conquest pause to 60 seconds, raised the rank requirement from 5 to 10. Importantly, they increased the stats of jungle bosses to allow them to have a longer time to kill, especially in the late game. They also made tech allowing them to disable items in certain game modes, therefore they did a bunch of Assault, Arena, and Joust and duel changes. Rama was Lermi's god, so it's a little bittersweet that they're using her design, and Achilles was Ro's god, who was also laid off, so it kind of sucks seeing them leave and having their content drop after they've been removed from development. The focus primarily going forward is going to be about their core players and who they feel like they need to be focused on. Since October, they've focused primarily on the core gameplay and appeasing to Smite players as they judge Smite 2 against Smite 1 and not other games, and so while they still want to be servicing the core players, they also need to make sure the game is now also going to be good for new players going forward. They need to make more skins, as they haven't really even given the players an opportunity to support them, which the Wandering Market is a good first step towards that. Every system is mostly targeting core players, well, with a secondary focus on new players. Anything on the schedule that doesn't service those two players, they are not going to be focusing on right now. And after they've strengthened the already rock-solid foundation they have, they will be focusing primarily on new players to acquire new blood in the game. They talked about god frequency going forward. Over the next couple months, you can still expect one god a week. They mentioned until at least Bari, and depending on how they spend the week reprioritizing their schedule, it's going to define their new content release schedule going forward, and they will be talking about that more on a future Titan Talk, which I will cover. People want skins. There aren't enough skins or classic skins for players. They're talking about how they can make a regular cadence of skins and what the right balance is between classic and new skins. They're trying to figure out how to do the best of both worlds. They also want to finish making all the cross-gen skins, so that's a big priority for them. Skins are a big topic within the community and within the team right now. They're making a new stuff featured store page featuring the latest skin releases. It's a simple mock-up and it was made, so it should be coming soon. How can we feel any good about investing time and money in the future and then the devs get blindsided by corporate? Hilgoon responded, I think nobody's future is guaranteed. The way he's always lived his life as a gamer is that he's only played the game that he's had the most fun playing right now. He thinks they're very fortunate that players believe that Smite 2 is the most fun game that they can play. They're confident that the amazing core community that loves Smite above all else, that as long as that same core community is around, Smite 2 will never die. It's very niche, Smite is, but Kilgoon has reiterated that play whatever you want to have fun playing, and to ignore what people say is fun. The Doomers aren't relevant. Travis agreed with the sentiment, and they're still committed to Smite 2, which they believe is simply just fun to play. Somebody asked, why were the layoffs necessary? Kilgoon says at the end of the day, HiRez is a business. We are not here because it's the best place on the planet for investors to make money, but they need to not be losing money. They invested a lot of money into Smite 2, and they've been spending more than they've been making for quite some time. They've had a lot of hope going into free-to-play that a lot of relapsed Smite players and new players would come, but the projections were definitely realistic, but they exceeded in some ways and undershot in some other ways. The truly new players generally did not stick around very well, and there wasn't a whole lot of them. They also didn't get as many old Smite players to try Smite 2 as they'd hoped. When those numbers panned out, it became pretty clear that if they did nothing, they'd risk everything. If they continued with previous staffing levels and expenses, they would have ran out of money at some point, and they wouldn't have been able to keep Smite going. This move was required to get costs down to in line with how much they were making, so that they can continue making Smite 2 in the foreseeable future. They didn't want to gamble and try to turn the numbers around. There's a lot of room to improve the numbers, a lot of room, he reiterated twice, but to gamble everything on that hope would have been irresponsible not just for the company and investors but for the community playing the game. As HiRez talked to investors, Kilgoon said he can't quite comment on that, but the way the market is right now, it's hard to get investors into gaming products in general, but he can't really say anything beyond that. Optimization on PS5. Travis said, for some reason PS5 is running 3 milliseconds higher than Xbox Series X and PC. It has been noticed, and they've been digging into this issue for the PS5. Because game thread is high on PS5, and if they can solve that, they can improve performance across the board. Esports updates. Kilgoon said no updates at this time, but sometime soon. It was one of the last pieces that needed to come together as part of this whole thing, but updates as soon as they can. Some people feel it was very insensitive that they had Lermi on the Titan Talk yesterday before she was afflicted. And Kilgan said, yeah, in retrospect, they shouldn't have done that, but Isaiah books the people on the show. He didn't know that she was included in the layoffs, but they didn't want to stress Lermi out by uninviting her, but they understand it was a pretty shitty move, and Kilgan really didn't know how to handle that situation. Kilgan said, are you going to turn off the Smite 1 servers? And he laughed, no, not at this time. Even at the reduced player base, Smite 1 is bringing in enough money to keep the servers going on. Even if they didn't bring in the money, they'd probably keep it up for a long while. Kilgoon said, "What is our average player count from all platforms? Players is something they can't really talk about since it's company metrics, but console is about 50 to 66% of the player base, depending on the time and patch. But they do know that they need to improve the console experience, especially since it's the majority of the player base. The way new item building systems work make it much harder to find the items in the console shop. But they have a plan to make the item remember what it was going to be built into, which should massively increase the usability of the console UI. They're also going to be making potions not switch back between purchases. He read that there's a lot of potential for the console version to grow. Kilgan also said the custom builds are on the radar and they're going to be prioritized. Somebody asked, do we have a plan to handle all the work handled by the people laid off? Travis responded, yeah, they're going to be going through each department and rebuilding their plans based on the holes that got punched through in their plans. They had a lot of plans for the next 6 months, but then now they are going to readjust and reprioritize certain aspects. Funny bug this morning, a lot of people got double diamonds on the morning of February the 10th, and they didn't take away any of the diamonds, but they did fix it. Also, in this Titan Talk, somebody gifted 200 subs on that Titan Talk, which is crazy. I think that's like what, like $1,000 or something? I don't know. Ponpon is now working on Bari, not Lermy I don't know if it was Ro or Lermy, but I think it was Lermy. Why didn't they lay people off until they saw how much money the Wandering Market was made? Kilgoon said that they ran the numbers, and because so many people have purchased the Founders Edition or login every week, most engaged players already had enough diamonds to buy the markets saved up. It's highly unlikely that the first Wandering Market makes any money, actually. The scale of the money they would need to make to justify to keep over 70 employees was extremely unlikely. Then Travis added, they believe that the Wandering Market is a future of their monetization, but even knowing the percentage of players, they can actually guess roughly within $100 how much money the Wandering Market was going to make before they launched it. Another thing I noticed on the stream, the devs had like a notepad or their phone out, and they were constantly writing down notes for stuff they need to fix and stuff. They are working incredibly hard. Rumors about the acquisition of HiRez or the Smite IP. Kilgan said, as far as he's aware, there's nothing that is currently planned. There's a chance that he somehow doesn't know, but it's highly unlikely. HiRez Ventures is a parent company that owns studios and Rally here. Travis is the general manager of Titan Forge, and Kilgoon is the executive producer. In things where Travis is too busy to deal with, Kilgoon is the one who takes over. Those two are the ones who are in charge of Smite and the game beyond the company strategy and the funding. They're the people in charge, basically. If there was any opportunity to sell the company, it's unlikely they'd be made aware of it, but they haven't heard of it. Travis, when will we be releasing Gods? We know that with confidence that they'll be sticking with the schedule up to Bari. After that, it really comes down to the plans that they make this week going forward to figure out the update cadence that services the core players and also keeps the lights on. They need to give the players an opportunity to buy stuff, and new gods in general take the longest amount of time to make. The slowest cadence that they're talking about is a god every 2 weeks. Kilgoon says, how do we plan to bring in new players / what's the marketing plan? Realistically, the thing that they learned from free-to-play is that the game isn't ready for new players. If you come into the game as a new player, you're almost certainly going to have a bad experience. Smite as a game is very difficult to get into, and they don't really make the process easy enough, especially for the 2025 gamers. Unlike Marvel Rivals, where you don't need to know anything and can just play, whereas in Smite, it's very difficult to understand what's going on and how to even start approaching the game. One of the most important things for getting players to stay is having a really good bot experience, apparently. Right now, they just kind of have bots that aren't that good. For new players, bots are incredibly important. Like in Marvel Rivals, if you lose too much in casuals, they will match you into a bot match to make you feel better. Not that they intend to do that. They want to make it so the natural trickle of new players tend to stay in the game and play more and more. Then they will invest into marketing and new players once they find that once new players start the game, they stay in the game. There was actually a funny bug in the game that bots were beating new players 80% of the time. And that's average bots, so they actually had to work to make the bot's skill level go down. Even new players couldn't beat the average bots at all. The bots were doing the same things like the same frame they were CC'd, they used beads instantly. Apparently Travis plays a lot of bot games, and apparently the harder bots were crazy. Travis said his son plays Overwatch only against bots, so he wants to make sure that there's a way to play the game that they can build their confidence against bots until they venture into PvP. What changed from the plan that led us to these layoffs and so on? What changed from the plan that led us to these layoffs and so on? So I didn't write this down entirely because they were talking really fast, but basically what he said is that every game that they made a ton of money on release. And Smite 2, at this stage in the game, players have a ton of currency, they have legacy gems and all that, so the money did not come in a flood, basically. They didn't all come in at once at the start, so that they could continue to support it for more regular updates, from what I understood from what they said. So basically, it's going to be more of a slow burn in terms of profit for them, rather than all the money all at once. Ultimately, they didn't hit their player projections. Existing players are moving over and playing the game more than they were expecting, so they knew that the product is very good ultimately for the core player base. Do you think that they killed Smite 1 too early? Hilgun responded, it's a very fair question, but given the knowledge that he had at the time, did he make the best decision that he could? They're only a certain size of team, and at the time they weren't going to get a lot more people no matter what they do. So the option was to go very slowly on Smite 2, like multiple years from now, constantly falling behind Smite 1 because of new skins and gods, or to either stop updating Smite as frequently without telling people why, or to just stop doing Smite 2 at all. Smite 1 is a technological dead end, stuck on UE3, lots of core issues that they can't even hire people to fix anymore because it's so old, and he thinks that no matter what they do to UE3, it's going to look and feel like UE3, and they couldn't get it running on new consoles. For these reasons and many more, they think Smite 2 was the best answer, and they felt like the best way to do this is to transition was to get it going right away, was to announce that they were going to slow down Smite 1, announce Smite 2 earlier than they wanted to, and develop the game in the public. Developing in the public has come with a lot of pros and cons, and when people first checked it out, they thought it was a lot further along than it was, and Kilgun thinks they didn't make it clear enough that the game was in extremely early development. At the time, they felt like they were making the right decision, and Kilgun tries to look back and think about what they knew at the time. And Kilgun said that he would have made the same decision no matter what. They think that bringing Smite 2 to the players early helped them make sure that they were focused on the right things, that letting Smite 1 limp along wasn't going to be the right answer going forward. They think it's natural that the core of the game is in a good spot, and now they need to think about new players, new skins, new monetization in order to get into a great spot. Someone asked about Kilgun Jr., his new baby, and he said he's doing great, about a month old or something. Just thought it was cute. Why no chibi skins? Chibi skins are all tier 4 level skins and require custom animations and a new animation rig. Every single one of those gods are going to be 4 to 5 other skins of work. And they want to focus on gods right now and with their rigging and animation team right now, so they're focusing on skins that more closely follow the rigging and animations of the original god. Here's a Paladins question. Is there any chance that we can get Paladins characters in Smite as skins at least? Historically, the two fan bases have actually had animosity towards each other for some reason, as I think that one game gets more attention than the other did, and so on, and this often flips. They did Fernando Ares, and it wasn't very popular, but they don't think that there would be a lot of demand for that because most people don't actively play both games. Twitch drops questions. We already know this now because they have Twitch drops live, but they were trying to get Twitch drops turned on the 10th, but it's going to happen tomorrow, which it did. And they're going to be dropping Wandering Market coins, which they do. UI editor soon. It's in the works. Biggest hurdle right now is saving your settings as the HUD editor, but the HUD editor works for the most part. They're going to be launching it in phases, as if they only let people move the minimap, they'd probably get about 90% of the people who use the HUD editor. They're targeting a minimum viable product of the HUD editor out soon. Someone asked, were the people that were let go just thrown out on the streets? Everyone was technically given a 60 days notice. They're not expected to work in those 60 days, but they are being paid those 60 days of salary, and they receive benefits for longer than 60 days. They're receiving resume writing help, counseling services, and job search services. While there's no perfect solution in times like these, there was something for them. Custom build features is on the roadmap, and they're still trying to figure out the best way to approach it. Early development begins now. Esports. Was Vegas not a success? Everyone at every level of the company said that Vegas was one of the best events they've ever run. There were no major issues, it was great, even, and everything was run very well in the run-up to that event. It had no impact on the layoffs. When decisions like this were happening, every dollar is a dollar, and the decisions were made in a way to prioritize the development of the game above all else, which led to the hard decisions to basically cut esports. Publishing got eviscerated. They once had 40 more people in publishing, but now it's just Kilgun and Isaiah. But basically, any non-core development positions were affected first, and then from there, how do they do the best they can with the money and headcount that they have left? It was never a decision on how to keep more people. It was a decision of how to keep the development going with the people that they can keep. They talked about, someone asked about if Titan Talk's going to keep going. They plan to keep it going for the foreseeable future. But the questions after this Titan Talk are going to be more focused on the game itself. Do you think the demand from players is too much? Somebody asked. Too much isn't the right word, but the Smite player base knows what they want. When they first went into the project, they thought the player base would have been more open to re-examining some things, but they've been more constrained to Smite 1 parity than they thought they would be. To the point where the community is still asking for 2 relics, but 1 relic is better. That's from me, not him, but 1 relic is better. Will they change their porting policy for Smite 2? Their plan is to still focus on +1s for existing character kits, and they don't want to change a character too much because people will get mad. So they try to think about ways to evolve the kit with additions rather than reworking it or taking away. They're looking at aspects to provide more of a shift rather than reworking. Kilgun apparently played Guan Yu in a playtest the other day. He doesn't have his horse right now, but he's on the way. Apparently, there's been a few Smite 2 gods that have wrecked released Guan Yu in Smite 1 and put him to shame. So, the new Smite 2 gods apparently are pretty good. They plan to do HUD themes as a stretch goal. And also, Kilgun said they appreciated everybody, and they don't think that there's many communities that would listen to them 3 days a week, and they really appreciate the community support. And they think the way to approach development, where the developers are more front-facing, Well, it does make the layoffs harder for the player base. They still want to keep their devs in the front face because that's where they want to be. And for Alani flavors today, they had cherry twist and cosmic dust. Anyways, that was February 10th. February 12th will be coming soon, and that'll catch me up with the Titan Talks Too Long Didn't Watch. Thanks for watching. More for the future.